How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Liberty Bowl Soap. Apparently, old Scaby Hobbs did a interview this weekend with Fox, and in her usual fashion, it was not only unintelligible but insufferable. Right? So they went and talked about things like immigration and the elimination of the school choice program that we have here in Arizona. And I went ahead and recorded it and broke it down for you guys. So we're going to go ahead and get into that video here and my analysis. But as always, pack up your bowls and everything because it's the Liberty Bowl. So before we get into that, let's get into this. Oops.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to foot.
We're losing our democracy!
More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
Wake up!
Before we get into that, let's get into this.
Governor, welcome to Fox News Sunday. Thank you for making time for us because this is a very busy week for you with a major golf tournament, the Super Bowl. How has your initial foray as governor been?
Well, there couldn't be a more exciting time to be the governor of Arizona. As you mentioned, the Super Bowl. What a way to walk into this office and to really showcase our state, not just to the rest of the country, but the world. This is going to be broadcast in 200 countries and several languages. So we're really excited.
So taking on the governor's office, you have a slew of huge issues that meet you on day one in the door. Arizona is one of the states most impacted by the border situation. So let's talk about that because under the previous governor, he was a Republican. He did busing. You said it was a waste of taxpayer money and a political stunt. But NPR now notes that many Democrat governors and mayors are considering the same thing. They say reality has helped shift the politics of transporting migrants. So is that what happened? The reality for you of the situation, the strain on your local, border communities and that kind of thing, did that change in your mind a position on whether it's okay or not to be transporting people out of the state?
Yeah, we've continued the program, but I think with a more humane and more efficient spin on it. This money was appropriated by the legislature to specifically bus these legal asylum seekers. And so our decision was to get them where they need to go, to their sponsor or where they have resources and support, instead of just putting them on a bus to DC, which is expensive. It's days of travel with lodging and food expenses. We want to get them where they need to go. And that's providing relief to these communities that need it, but also a more humane response to these folks.
Okay, so what Miss Scaby Hobbs here has just explained is, remember, these last few months, how places like Florida, Texas, and here in Arizona, we've been taking busloads of migrants and sending them to places like Washington, D.C. and these so-called sanctuary cities like New York City and stuff like that. All right, so this is basically what happens when the power shifts from Republican Governor Doug Ducey to Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs, right? And as you can see, NPR is endorsing this, and basically they like the idea of busing migrants now. The only difference is instead of busing them to places where they're going to be a nuisance on the federal government and these so-called sanctuary cities that are basically all for illegal immigration, they're busing them to the places of their choice, right? So as we know, Democrats tend to like to bus immigrants to places to basically replace voters, right? It's a so-called replacement theory, which was basically started by Democrats. Basically, the whole we can replace them thing. This is what it looks like in action, all right? Pretty fucked up shit.
So what about those who point to some of the federal policies that we have and they say it's a magnet? What about Arizonans who may think, okay, don't use our tax dollars to invite people here and then tell them we're going to give them a paid trip to where they actually want to go within the state? Isn't that an attractive pull at a time when we're seeing record numbers of illegal immigration at the border?
I mean, it certainly could be seen that way. This is money that was appropriated by our Republican legislature in the previous legislative term at the governor's request, and to do this busing program. So it's already appropriated money. I want to focus on how we use the taxpayer resources in the best way possible to address the needs of the impacted communities, but then continue to push Washington to actually solve this issue.
Okay, so basically what the question was is policies like this and what we're seeing from the Biden administration in regards to immigration a magnet for these illegal immigrants, and basically a further magnet to Arizona now that we have a busing program where basically as long as you make it to America, we'll send you anywhere you'd like to go. You don't need to fucking be legal, none of that shit, right? So of course, that is going to be seen as a magnet for illegal immigration here, all right? So basically, the whole problem with what is basically considered as a magnet for illegal immigration is the basically socialized social safety nets that we have here in America, right? We are no longer the land of the free. We're basically if you have the gusto and the know-how to basically make something and be a self-starter, then you can become something here in America. It doesn't matter where you come from. You can become something here in America, right? That used to be the case. Now the case is basically come to America and we will give you things like free college tuition, we'll give you free housing, room and board and all that stuff, and you don't ever have to worry about a thing. That is why we are seeing massive surges of illegal immigration here in America and have been seeing them over the last few decades, right? And with these types of policies in place, it is just going to get worse. The funny thing is too, is how she says that she wants to call on the federal government to fix these problems. You have the same, if not worse, type of stance on the issue of illegal immigration. Basically, what they want to do is they want to let everybody pour in as quickly as possible, send them anywhere that they would like to go, and basically give them a fast track path to citizenship, right? It used to be you have to, at least have some civics. You used to be able to name the presidents, all that type of shit. Basically more than the average person here in America knows today about, civics and basically American history, right? Now it's basically, you want to come here, you want to work, here you go.
Yeah, Governor Polis, Colorado, a Democrat as well, he was doing busing until Chicago and New York asked him to stop sending people there because they are feeling overwhelmed and dealing with the reality that many of your border communities deal with. But he has put the blame on the federal government. He says they haven't gotten it together on immigration or border security. He blames the feds. Do you?
Absolutely. This is an issue the can has been kicked down the road for decades by both parties in Washington. Solving our immigration crisis could help with the economy, help with inflation. We need real solutions.
All right, just to be clear, Katie Hobbs does not want, the federal government to come in and fix, the border or anything like that. They don't want the federal government to come and put up a wall or anything like that. Basically, when she says that she wants the federal government to come in and solve immigration, she basically wants to make it a fast track to citizenship. She basically wants this unskilled labor force, this cheap unskilled labor force to come in and basically have a fast track to citizenship as long as they vote blue, right? That's the entire Democrat fucking immigration plan, right? Come in, doesn't matter who, as long as you vote blue.
So the idea, again, we talked about of a magnet. You announced something in your State of the State address, a $40 million plan for students who are here illegally but be able to go to college with assistance here in Arizona. The House Majority Leader here, who is a Republican, said this about that plan. He said, Governor Katie Hobbs in her State of the State stated that she would like to invest $40 million to help pay for illegal immigrants to attend college in Arizona. What about legal citizens of Arizona or any other state?
Yeah, we absolutely increased funding for Arizona's Promise Scholarship Program, which helps Arizona students. But our plan to create this scholarship program for Dreamers is right in line with Arizona voters who overwhelmingly passed a provision in this last election to provide in-state tuition for Dreamers. These are Arizona students who went to Arizona schools and high schools and should be afforded the same opportunities as other Arizona students. They're not eligible for federal assistance, including Pell Grants.
See, told you, free scholarships for illegal immigrants, right? So if that isn't incentivizing illegal immigration, I don't know what is, right? So first off, we got a wide open border right now. Doug Ducey was putting up shipping containers over there along our southern border, and basically he was sued by the federal government and ordered to take them down, right? How do you like that? The federal government basically ordered Arizona to take down our United States and Mexico border. Pretty interesting shit, right? So then on top of that, we also have the fact that Katie Hobbs will also bus you anywhere that you would like to go in America, free of charge on the taxpayer's dollar, right? And then now you also have this $40 million scholarship incentive for dreamers, right? So basically what dreamers are is if you were brought here as a baby, if you were born in Mexico and brought here as a baby, then basically you still get citizenship, right? If you've lived here basically since you were, a child, basically, America's essentially the only place that because you were brought here as an infant or a child, then basically not only do you get citizenship, but now you get a scholarship.
Is it a magnet, though? When you look at all these other programs and people say if they know they can get across the border, of course people want their children to get an education.
Well, we're talking about many students who probably came when they were infants, before they had any control over the decision, and who went to Arizona schools their whole life. This is the only country that they know. They're not the ones who made the choice to come here. And they deserve the opportunity in the country that they call home.
The fact that they didn't choose to come here, in my opinion, does not make any difference as to whether or not they deserve a scholarship paid on the taxpayer's dollar, right? If basically legal citizens like me and you can't get the same type of treatment, then yeah, I definitely don't believe that they deserve scholarships just because of the fact that their parents happened to bring them here when they were children.
So let's talk about education K through 12 here in Arizona, because you're getting heat for potentially trying to roll back the voucher system here, which gives people a portion of what would be spent in public schools and allows them to take that elsewhere to use for their students. Here's what Arizona State President Warren Peterson has to say. It would be a huge debacle and mistake for her to eliminate the ESA program because you have a ton of minorities and you have a ton of low-income people. You have a lot of her base that benefit very much from the ESA. He says, you're going to hurt the people that are your supporters.
Well, I'll start by saying that regardless of your philosophy on whether taxpayer dollars should go to public or private schools, this is going to bankrupt our state. And many independent analysis have showed that. And we're not calling for a repeal of the entire program. We're just calling for a repeal of the universal expansion. And the folks that President Peterson cited in the quote that you just shared, they're not actually benefiting from this program. There's no evidence that shows that. And for the most part, these families, regardless of getting a private school voucher, they're not able to afford the gap in tuition that exists with this program. And so largely wealthy families that are already sending their kids to private school and can already afford the tuition are the ones who are getting this subsidy for private school.
Okay, so what they're talking about here is the ESA program, or Earned Scholarship Academic Program here in Arizona, all right? So what this program is it's essentially school choice. So Arizona schools are very, very low performing. I believe they're ranked like 48th in the nation right now, which is horrible, right? Seeing as we're at 50 states, right? So it's so what the ESA program does is it basically makes it to where you take the money that would be getting spent on your pupil or child, and you take that said money or a portion of that money, and it goes in a voucher for you to spend on tuition at a school of your choice. All right. So you could spend that on private schools. You could spend it on magnet schools. You could spend it basically anywhere that you would like to send your child. All right. So it basically, for one, it creates competition among schools. Right. So I'm a huge proponent of school choice. It creates competition among schools, which is basically what is going to lead to better academic performance, for the students. Right. So basically, when competition comes into play and basically parents get to choose where they send their kids, in order for these schools to be able to get any sort of funding from these parents, they need to be highly competitive. They need to be highly performing. They need to outcompete the other schools in order to get the money. That's the entire fucking thing about a competitive capitalist type system, rather than just a state funded school system, right? So basically what they're planning on doing right now, I believe Katie Hobbs in her budget proposal was planning on taking the per pupil spending that Arizona is doing and bringing it up from, I think, like 9,000 something like that to 11,000 something like that per pupil in public schools, right? With the ESA program, you're able to get $7,000 of that, and you can take your kid to whatever school you choose, right? So she mentions the price gap, right? So the average, so let's see, I got some numbers here. The average private high school tuition in Arizona is $13,772 per year in 2023, right? The private high school with the lowest tuition is Central Academy with a tuition of $1,700, right? So there's a price difference, right? So the average private school, as they mentioned, for high school. I'm just mainly going for high school. For things like elementary schools, all like that, it's obviously different prices, but I'm talking about high school here. It's around $13,000. So $7,000 from that $13,000, you're still going to be paying a good little hefty price, right? Essentially, if you have that extra kind of money, great. If not, then you are going to have to go for one of these lower cost ones that is within that $7,000 price range, unless you're able to set up some sort of payment plan throughout the school year, where basically you fund the rest of the remaining tuition. But either way, with more competition, things like not only the academic performance, but the cost of tuition is also going to have to be competitive. That's why I'm not only a proponent for school choice, but I'm a huge proponent for 100% privatized schools. I am not a fan of public school whatsoever, and I do not believe that we should have any sort of state-funded public schooling system, right? I believe basically, of course, having educated people is essential to having a strong nation, a strong society. And therefore, this problem will solve itself because of the fact that we realize that, right? So things like schools are going to be popping up all over, where they could be specialized for things like, social and emotional learning. They could be specialized for things like trade. They could be specialized for things like the arts. They could be specialized for anything that your child so desires, the field that they most likely wish to eventually go into in their future, right? So that is why I'm a huge proponent for school choice and all public school, or all privatized schools rather than public schools.
So you talk about the financial impact on the state, and we looked around. It looks like estimates on what you spend on public school students, and you probably know off the top of your head, but it's in the $9,000 to $10,000 range. What you would pay out on the ESA vouchers would be $7,000. So this comes from an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal, and they cite the Common Sense Institute, and they talk about the people who've taken these vouchers and left and are not anymore going to be in that pool for public school students in the roughly $9,000 to $10,000. Yeah. They say the Common Sense Institute calculates that this decline generates more than $500 million in annual statewide savings, more than offsetting the $377 million annual projected cost of the full ESA program. I'm not great at math, but what they're saying here, by their calculation, is it would actually save the state money.
Well, I don't dispute their math, but they're not looking at the whole picture. And many of these students that are applying for and receiving these vouchers are in districts that aren't getting the per pupil funding from the state. They're just relying on the property tax base. So it's not hitting the bottom line of their school districts at all, but it's pulling money out of the entire system. And as a result, the school system that roughly 80% of families and students still continue to choose in Arizona, the public district school system, is being robbed of those resources, and that is creating an unequal playing field where those resources aren't going to the schools that need it the most.
Okay, so here she's faced with some hard numbers, and she basically says that she does not dispute the math and that basically those numbers are correct, but she says that they're not looking at the entire big picture, right? Well, let's widen out the picture just a little bit more, right? So this $10,000 to $11,000 that she was planning on spending on each individual student at these school districts are now going to be reduced to $7,000, which the remainder would still be going to the said school district. At the same time, that student would not be in said school district and therefore not soaking up resources from said school district, right? So there's more money saving right there, right? I mean, I don't know, seems pretty basic to me. All right, so it seems like her big gripe is that these that basically these public schools are going to be underfunded, and they have been underfunded, right? So essentially, for whatever reason, the big government party Democrats think that the answer to everything is just print more money, throw money at it, whatever, that'll fix it, So these teachers basically feel that they need more money in order to teach better, right? So if that is the case, then are they willfully undereducating our students because they feel that they are being underpaid? And in which case, is their moral compass even worth sending our students to go learn from them?
Okay, so I want to play something that the state House Majority Leader said in response to your plan. I think this was his response to your State of the State address. Okay.
We also think it's only right that Arizona students have the same choice that Governor Hobbs had attending a private school, which she credits for helping her build a better life.
A reference there to the private Catholic high school that you went to. So why shouldn't all students have a chance at what you said was so important in your own life?
Look, I grew up in a working class family. This was well before any of this of public assistance for private school existed, and my parents made that choice. I begged them to send me to public school, and we sacrificed a lot. There were times in my family that we were on food stamps, and so it was a choice that they made, and they struggled to make that choice. What I want is for every student in the state of Arizona, no matter where they live, to have access to high quality public education. And with this universal voucher system, that's not happening.
Oh, dug a little deep there, got a little bit personal, right? So as you can see, Katie Hobbs has this whole, private schools for me, but not for thee type thing going on apparently. So she credits private school as basically, being the reason that she is where she is today, right? But at the same time, she does not think that you should have that same opportunity, right? So she said that her parents, were working class people. They, scraped and whatever they had to do to basically save up enough to be able to send her to private school. And she actually begged them to send her to public school. All right. So what reason would she have for that? My guess is probably that, she was one of those fucking little shitty kids that just didn't want to actually sit down and do the work. She basically just wanted to go to school to play. She basically just wanted to go to a daycare where she could just go hang out with friends and not have to follow a strict set of rules and, a tough curriculum. Right. That's my guess as to why she probably wanted to go to public school rather than private school.
But if their system is failing, if their public school is failing, no to giving them a chance to go somewhere else like you did?
The schools are failing because we are failing to invest in them. They're being starved of resources.
Okay, I want to ask you quickly about the debt ceiling, which isn't directly involved for the states, but the National Governors Association put out a statement this week. We call on both the administration and Congress to consider serious long-term reforms that will reduce the national debt and put the country on more sustainable fiscal footing, because, of course, federal funding flows to things that you have to get done here in the state. You can't go out and print money. You guys have to balance your budget. So advice for Washington.
Well, Washington needs to deal with this issue both in the short term and the long term. So yes, we need long-term solutions, but we need to make sure that we have financial stability now, and that involves increasing the debt ceiling so that we can pay our obligations, not default on our debt, and make sure that there's financial stability.
We'll see if they listen what you have to say. Governor, thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay, so there you guys have it, man. If you are an illegal immigrant, come on down to Arizona, because not only is our border wide open, but we are also going to bus you anywhere you would like to go in the country on the taxpayer's dollar. Not only that, if you'd like to stay here in Arizona, no problem. We'll also go ahead and send your children to, college, full ride scholarship on the taxpayer's dollar, right? No problem. Definitely not incentivizing illegal immigration in the slightest, but either way, that's what it is. If you happen to be an American citizen, if you happen to be a citizen of Arizona, if you happen to be born and raised in this state, well, we're just going to go ahead and cut off any access that you might have to any sort of higher education, and we're going to go ahead and divert it over to these illegal immigrants, because they are the more marginalized people. Even though they're not actually citizens of our community, they're the more marginalized people of our community somehow, and they need that money more, right? Basically, when it comes down to things like education, the Democratic system is basically throw more money at it and just get these big, taxpayer-funded institutions that are basically just here to indoctrinate our students into basically being government puppets, basically being the social and emotionally learned fucking Frankfurt School of Indoctrination, future communist fucking revolutionaries, right? So if you are in any way, shape, or form against that, that's basically means that you're a bad person in their eyes, right? So I don't know. That's my rant on this, but I appreciate you guys stopping by. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video out. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I appreciate you guys bearing with me. I know my videos are a bit far and few between lately, but I do shit. Either way, I appreciate you guys. Like, subscribe, share. Fuck off.